Hello and welcome again to French ABCD. Today we will continue with French basics. This is going to be lesson 1B, the second and final part of French basics. It may be a good idea to go back and review lesson 1A that covered particularly the alphabet in French, voyelles and consonnes, vowels and consonants. In today's lesson, we will focus on punctuation signs and orthographic signs as well. In French, they are called les signes de ponctuation et les signes orthographiques. The reference in your manual is on page 9. So, buckle up, folks. Off we go. Les signes de ponctuation are punctuation signs. I'm going to give you the French and then the English equivalent, and then you can compare. What the French call point, the English calls period or full stop. It is used at the end of a sentence. And the same thing in French. Le professeur est en retard. You end the sentence with a period or a full stop. The teacher is late. Donc, in French, it's called le point termine une phrase, which is the same as a period, a full stop is used at the end of a sentence. We also use it for abbreviations. Monsieur, which is Mr. in French, is written M period. Avenue, as in the street, is AV period. Do you put a period when you abbreviate in English? Well, it appears that there is a difference between US and British English. How about a title? A doctor in the US will have to be DR and period. Drive, as in Rodeo Drive, you would have to have a period. I'm not sure if in England you do. It appears that no, they do not have to have one. All right, let's move on. The virgule. Now, virgule is comma in English. It marks a short pause between elements in a sentence. What the English calls a dash, the French call tiret, un tiret. So what is the purpose of a tiret? Well, it is the same as in English. At the beginning and end of a comment that interrupts the flow of a sentence. This is the same in French. You call it le tiret or un tiret. We will explain the difference between le and un, but for now, ignore it. Next up, guillemets. Okay? Notice how I pronounce it? Guillemets and not guillemets. Okay? We're going to do that later on. So what is a guillemet? Well, it is a quotation mark. It is used to report a direct speech. Notice that little funny thing here. This is English, or sometimes it is only one. Okay? In French, it is not. It gives you the type of arrow. Left show, right show. That's the difference. But if you are writing on Word, for example, and it detects the language in French, when you use quotation mark, it automatically defaults to this script here. Okay? I forgot to tell you that if you want a list of abbreviation, I believe it is on page 12 of the manual. I will double check that for you in a second. The list of abbreviation in the manual, a full list of abbreviation, is not on page 12, as I said earlier. Instead, it is on page 14 and 15. So you can have a look at that, and it will give you a pretty good idea of how the French abbreviates. And you can always compare it with English. It's a very good exercise. So after point d'interrogation, I suppose you can already say, by looking at that, what it means without looking at the equivalent in English. Well, it is a question mark, and what do we do with a question mark? As you already know, it is used at the end of a question. Okay, so at what time do we meet tomorrow? Well, there is a question mark because we are asking a question. Okay, in French, it's point d'interrogation, parenthèse. Now, parenthèse is this little thing here, you see? Now, in English, it's called parenthesis, or sometimes also called brackets. Now, I always thought bracket had to be square bracket. If they are not a square, then they are called parentheses. Well, I don't know. We'll have to find out. Now, what do we do with parentheses or brackets? Well, they are used to enclose a word or words which can be left out and still leave a meaningful sentence. There is no difference here in French compared to English. It is the same thing. Deux points is colon in English. It is used in front of a list or for other reasons. So if tomorrow you have to go make a list and you say, please bring me the following, you would use the colon and then you would enumerate what comes after. It is the same thing in French, except it is called deux points. Now, if it is not deux points, sometimes we have one and then a comma. In English, it's called semicolon. They are used to separate items in a list. The French would simply call point virgule. Why point virgule? Well, it does make sense a little bit. Yesterday I told you in every word there is a logic. Well, why point virgule? This is your point and this is your virgule. So this is your period and this is your comma. So instead of calling it semicolon, the French literally calls it period, comma, point virgule. Okay? Up next, point d'exclamation, which is an exclamation mark in English. It is used after exclamations and emphatic expressions. In French, quelle horreur! Oh mon Dieu! Parbleu! C'est pas possible! Well, in French, it's very common to have that kind of expression, but in English too. Holy moly, Batman! Oh my God! So these are expressions that usually would mark, and it's either an exclamation or emphatic expression, and usually you have to put this. Now, I see a lot of people after thank you in an email at the end, instead of saying regards or best wishes, even then they do put an exclamation mark. Now, is that what you call an emphatic expressions? Could be. Point de suspension is the ellipsis in English, also known as dot, dot, dot. Keep in mind, it cannot be more than 3. It cannot be less than 3. It has to be 3. 1, 2, 3. Less or more is wrong. You cannot then call it ellipsis because there's not going to be dot, dot, dot. 1, 2, 3. They are used to show that a sentence is unfinished and that some words have been left out. Okay, you see that a lot in novels when you want to leave your reader in a type of suspense mood. We are now ready to look at orthographic signs. Let's flip to page 11 of the manual, please. The orthographic signs in French are, there's 7 of them, the accent aigu, which is called the acute accent in English, the accent grave, which is called the grave accent, accent circonflexe, the circumflex, tréma, the tréma, cédille, the cédille, trait d'union, hyphen, and apostrophe. In English, it's apostrophe. Now, first observation. Learning a language is the same as learning anything else. It is very important to have a keen sense of observation. If you observe, you will see sometimes, you will learn just by observing. It's very important, I think. So the first observation is, look at that. What do you notice here, including here? French accents are used with vowels only, except for the cédilla, of course. So, look at that, the acute accent. Okay? It is used on E, which is a vowel. Accent grave, the grave accent, on A, E, or U. The accent circumflex, the circumflex, is used on A, E, I, O, U. Trema is used on E, I, and U. The cedilla is the exception here, so we're going to leave it out. And it's very important. If you remember that, you're going to be uh, halfway of your learning already. Okay? Now, just one word about this cedilla, which is kind of, the exception. While it is an exception to the rule, and as you will learn later, just about every rule in French has an exception. So the cedilla is the first one among many that you will come across. The accent aigu, which is the acute accent. Notice it goes from left and it rises to the right. So here is your accent. Okay. So if you're going to write an E with an accent, it goes here. Okay. I'm not going to uh, give you all the information that there is about the accent aigu. I don't want to scare you, nor do I want to confuse you. Later on, you will learn more. So for now, just simply remember it is found on an E only, that accent. Okay? And it changes the pronunciation of the vowel E into a close one. How? Well, it gives it only a sound A instead of E. When you have the E here without the accent, it's E. You round your lips. But once you have the accent aigu, the sound becomes E. Okay? You will learn that. Just like here, citer, télé, aimer. Okay? The accent grave, or the grave accent, they are used on A, E, and U. Now notice how it goes from right and it rises to the left. So this is how it goes on E. Okay? Now compare that with the accent aigu. It goes here and it rises that way. Accent grave goes the other way. It starts from the right and it rises to the left. This one starts from the left and rises to the right. So it is used above the three vowels A, E, and U. And why? Because it produces a different sound over the E only. Okay? And no changes over A and U. So then you're going to wonder, well, then why do you put this here and that one? Well, you'll find out later that there is a reason. Sometimes there are two words uh, or two letters meaning two different things. We can have a accent grave, just quickly, could be the auxiliary of verb avoir. Sorry, a without the accent grave is the auxiliary. A accent grave could be something else. Could be a preposition, right? So you will learn that. Just simply remember the A accent grave and the U. Sometimes they are used because they have different meaning. Accent circumflex, the circumflex. It goes like a chapeau, tuk, tuk, okay? Or if you want, the roof with a high pitch, roof on a house. A, E, I, O, U. They are used on long vowels. It distinguishes between two words pronounced the same way. Now, two words pronounced the same way, but they have different meaning. And there are, of course, other uses. We will talk about that later on. Now, the trema is very important. It goes on A. You see this two little dot on top? I think the German call it what? Umlaut? I think. So it goes on the vowel E, I, and U. Now, why do we have it? If we look at this, for example, okay? We've put the trema on the second vowel. It simply means that the second vowel needs to be sounded out as well. It needs to be pronounced. So, Noel means Christmas. Now, I've heard people in English call it joyous Noel. Noel, N-O-E-L. Because they don't know if you have the trema here, it means you have to separate it and pronounce it as well. Then you would have 1 and 2 syllables. You remember that yesterday? So Noël, joyeux Noël, or haïr means to hate. H-A, I, tréma, R, haïr. So you also have M-A-I-S, pronounced mais, which is but in English, or maïs, which is corn. Maïs, which is corn. Okay? That's why we say we put it on different words, on different vowels when we want to pronounce it, because it has a different meaning. The cédille, cédille, la cédille. Well, it is placed under the letter C, okay, like a hook. They call it a hook in English. So this is a hook. You place it under the letter C before the vowel A, O, or U. Then it gives it the sound of S. Otherwise, you might say it with the sound of K. Franquet, le con, récu. But once you put the cd, it gives the sound of S. Français. We also have François. Here it's leçon, and here it's reçu. Okay? So to recap, the cdia is placed under the letter C before A, O, or U to give it the sound of S. And in English, it is used to join 2 or more words together into one. Do you know what arc-en-ciel is? Rainbow. So 1, 2, 3. 3 different words, we put it together, and that's how you have the trait d'union, which brings words together. Do you know what this one is? Chou-fleur, cauliflower. Last but not least, the apostrophe. Oh, how do you say it in English? I think it's apostrophe, right? So l'apostrophe in French. What does it do? Well, it is not the same as in English, this one. Be very careful, okay? So here, what it does is, you see when you have 1 vowel, 2 vowel, you drop the first one and you replace it with an apostrophe, right? Vowel, vowel, you drop it and you replace it with an apostrophe. We will explain the H later on, but the H, when it is silent, then you drop it also, and sorry, this is good, then it becomes l'homme. L'homme means the man or male. So in English, it's different. The apostrophe in English is to show possession, like my brother's car. So the car of my brother, the car belongs to my brother. We also use it sometimes with letters and numbers. 82 for 1982, or during the 90s, or everybody in this class got straight A's. Okay? And sometimes for contraction, am for I am, or it for it is. So the use of apostrophe here, just be mindful of it. It has different uses in French. And this brings us to the end of the basics. So, to recap, the alphabet, the punctuation, and the orthographic signs are essential elements of the French language. You absolutely need to know them. Sine qua non. You just cannot get away from it. Know them, learn them, and you will do just fine for the rest of the lesson. Up next, we're going to talk about nouns. In French, les noms. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you again. Have a good day.